Welcome to the Core Truth. This is Peter Hernandez, your host, and today I have Wade Giles from Austin, Texas, with us today. Wade is just a rock star in Austin, superstar, big agent. And so it's super exciting that you're taking the time to be with me today on the Core Truth. Wade, welcome.
Well, thank you very much for the warm introduction. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, you deserve that and a lot more. But just so that our audience can get to know you a little bit, why don't you talk about your background a little bit, how you got into real estate, what you did before, and kind of bring us up to
Sure.
date current.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up always being fascinated with real estate. I was the kid who, anytime we were on vacation, we'd always go to the grocery store to load up, right? And I would always grab the magazines on the way out with all the different properties in them, and like the different vacation towns. Like we'd rent a lake house a lot every summer. I would look at all the lakefront properties in the real estate magazines. I've always just been super drawn to real estate. Got a real finance degree with concentration in real estate, and didn't go into real estate after college for quite some time later. About 11 years ago, I was working in finance in a corporate job, and we had just moved to Austin, Texas. I relocated with the company, and I just felt super compelled to go into real estate. I was like, I love the people here, I love the architecture, and I love the city. I want to do it. So I told my now husband, partner at the time, I said, listen, I want to go into real estate. I think it's a great idea. And he's like, you're too ADD. You need more structure. We travel all the time. It's a terrible idea. I'm like, listen, I'm not asking your permission. I've got to try. So I quit my job, got my license. Said, give me 6 months, which in hindsight is no time. Thankfully, I was able to make something happen and started a career that was delivered 10 years ago.
That's so funny because I always had a definition of the perfect realtor, and the perfect realtor in my definition has been they have to be ADD, they have to be compulsive, they have to be overly competitive, they have to be a little bit paranoid, and they've got to be anxious all the time. And if they have those qualities, they'll probably be pretty good. And it's actually channeling those qualities into the business that I think makes you good, actually. It's that, multitasking craziness that our industry is that I think makes an agent. And if you don't have that, if you're a little too relaxed or you're a little too comfortable, I don't think it happens.
I agree. I've had a twitch that developed when I do real estate, and it's not left ever since. So
Yeah. I can tell you, I've got all those qualities in spades, Wade. So I mean, it's like I am right there with you on them.
Yeah, absolutely. But I love what I get to do. I get to sell real estate in one of the most incredible cities in the world, and I get to represent some incredible properties. It's a lot of fun. I was at one of my listings last night for an evening showing, and they left a little bit before sunset. It has this amazing sunset overlooking Lake Austin and downtown and the Hill Country, and I just sat there by myself for 30 minutes and watched the end of the sunset over the sky. It was incredible. I was like, man, I get to do this. What a cool career. So
yeah. So as a kid, when you would leave the market and grab a magazine with homes, I'm just imagining. I mean, I never came close to doing that, and I'm just wondering, when you were looking at those homes, what were you thinking at that moment? Like, were you thinking, I want to sell these homes, or I would want to live in them, or what was the thought process?
I was just super curious. I mean, also my grandfather would get robbed report every month, right? So when I'd go to my grandfather's house, I'd go into his bathroom, and there was a stack of records, and I'd read the real estate section in that too. And I was always trying to gauge, like, why is this, 5,000 square foot apartment in New York, X amount of dollars, but this $20,000 estate, wherever in the middle of nowhere on all this land, it is a third the price, just not understanding things like location, and could never quite understand the disparity in price points, at a young age, but just being totally enamored with the properties and the details, different architectural styles.
So I was a little different. Like, my dad was in real estate, my brother was in real estate. And so I would have to sit in my dad's office, bored to death, or drive around with my brother, looking at all his properties and what he was doing and working on, like just feeling like a kidnapped kid. All I wanted to do was go surfing or go party. And here you are, man, it was totally, I was the reluctant realtor. You were like, it was just like channeling you. You were on your way to becoming a real estate agent. I can see the difference.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just, and I think outside of the properties, what I love more are the people. I'm just a people person,
Yeah.
and I get really invested in clients. Like getting good agents, not just a transaction.
Yeah, that's great. That's really wonderful. Well, I know, Wade, you were just recently at a Tom Ferry event, and shout out to Tom for, being such a great coach and great leader in our industry. And you learned some things at that I know we wanted to talk about today to share with our audience some of the different things that you learned. And the first
Yeah.
thing I think that you kind of heard, and I don't know how you reacted to it, was, but that basically Tom told everybody in the room, you're working at 70%. How did that go over?
That's correct. It did not go over super well at the conference. I think he ruffled some feathers for sure. But what he was saying is this real estate market is challenging. It's going to continue to be challenging, and there's a lot of separation in the market right now, and there's a lot of market share to be had during this time of change. So embrace the change and really give it everything you can right now. Keeping Current Matters had something out last week that said that the 12th through the 20th, I think, were the dates of April, are going to be the best. Is like the best week to sell real estate this year, this quarter. I can't remember exactly, but just knowing that now is the time, and we're going to be coming up against some headwinds here in the fall with the election. Interest rates are still kind of hovering where they are. Obviously, there's more information to come out Friday, but in general, we're probably not going to see a lot of change for interest rates in the near future. So, it comes down to marketing these properties, making sure the condition is fantastic, and the price to sell. At least that's what we're seeing here in Austin.
Wade, I think there was that part, but I think there's another part to this conversation that we really should address, and that is that one of the things I know about you is you have an incredible work ethic. You can just tell from, I mean, as a minimum, the amount of social media posts you do. I mean, that there is more than what most agents do. And then I know you run listings and buyers and escrows, and you have a full-time, major career going on. I imagine you get up early. I imagine you finish late. I imagine you sacrifice dinners. I imagine you sacrifice, arriving late to parties and all kinds of things. I'm sure your husband is going crazy, rolling his eyes half the time. But yet,
Yes.
it's not sexy, but I really think it's one of the main ingredients to being successful is having a good work ethic. How do you think you develop that? Because I think all agents, when they start out, come into this business thinking they're not going to have to work that hard.
Yeah. Well, if you watch enough real estate TV, I can see why sometimes that perception is the case. But we all know that television is not the full picture. And so, or what we see on TV is not the full picture, especially when it comes to real estate. I think my work ethic came, I grew up as a kid very passionate about horses. And my parents couldn't afford them, but I was going to make sure to do with anything within my power around them. And so I was the kid who would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and ride my bike to the horse barn and clean stalls before school. I made $5 an hour. And then after school, I'd come home, get my homework done quickly, bring the horses in, feed them for the evening, brush them, so on and so forth. And I loved it. I mean, I would clean stalls in exchange for riding lessons and would learn that way. So, if I was going to be around horses, it was going to have to be up to me, and that instilled, I think, an incredible work ethic. And because I grew up in this horse world, part of my world was this horse world. My parents weren't necessarily involved, but I was at the barn quite a bit, got to know some of these people, and I knew how much these horses cost, and that it's a very expensive hobby. And so I knew that if I wanted to do this as an adult someday in the future, I was going to have to work really hard. And so horses for a long time have been my why. And it was pretty incredible. It all came full circle in 2021 when my horses we won the world championships. And that was just the most amazing feeling in the world, because all of those years of getting up early and putting those open house signs out and doing all the things that we don't love to do as realtors, really paid off.
That's funny. I mean, I I think it's really great that you're at Douglas Elliman now because we're such an equestrian company, and our CEO, Scott Durkin, has several horses. He's a major equestrian lover, and I know you are too. And maybe you guys have even chatted about it a bit, because I think that's a great thing you guys have in common. One of the other things that we learned, or you learned at the Tom Ferry event, was about getting everything done early in the first part of the year. In other words, front loading your marketing. Can you talk a little bit about why he thought that we had to kind of like fast forward everything this year to?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So he was really adamant about front loading our marketing this year because of the election. He says that by July, we will be so inundated with media around the election and so on and so forth that it's going to be really, really difficult to get any true marketing or messaging out to your sphere of influence and network through social and other marketing platforms. We're just going to be so oversaturated. It's going to be immensely more difficult. And so, granted, we can't help whatever listings come out, and if we have listings that are going to come out in the fall, we're going to come out in the fall. We're going to do the best we can. But as far as the messaging that we can control, we should go ahead and have them now. The other thing he said is that because interest rates are likely to go down before the election, we will hopefully be busy running around selling more real estate, so that you should have a lot of your content batched up ahead of time, so that you're not having to produce it when.
So you're kind of covering your bet if you think about it, because on the one hand, the election could slow things down. On the other hand, with the interest rates dropping at the same time, it might pick business up. So we're really looking at, we don't know which way it's going to go for sure, do we?
Correct. We do.
So it's better to, so in other words, what he's saying is by front loading the marketing, front loading your efforts, getting everything in place so that the second half of the year, you don't have to think about it. You're going to win either way.
Correct. And, that's a general rule. I mean, for us, when I have a list of projects always on the side with the team that kind of, I call it the parking lot. In the parking lot, we just put all the ideas, all the things that we want to get to at some point that aren't necessarily time sensitive. And whenever our market, we're not as busy, prepping homes for the market or showing buyers or showing our listings, and we have a little bit more time in the office, we looked at our parking lot list and see what things we want to tackle. And so it's the same kind of concept of it. Just using your time efficiently and wisely and working on things when you've got the time that you can't get to otherwise.
I imagine I can picture you sitting, you're probably in the front row or close to the front row at the event. I can see that you're probably in the VIP section of the event. I can imagine that. And as you sit there, I also imagine you taking notes. So when he said, I want you to front load your content, I want you to front load the effort, I want you to be prepared for that second half of the year, what were the 3 or 4 things you wrote down that you knew you had to get done?
More video, of course. Long form video is something that we are starting. So now
talk about that a little bit, because Sonny, who's running our stream yard right now and behind the scenes, is begging me to do long form videos, and I've been like putting it off because
me too.
Yeah, it's hard to think about something that you have to do for long term. So talk about that a little bit. What is that going to look like for you?
Well, we are still in the planning phases on that and what that content is going to look like and creating some kind of continuity and structure. But we are going to go ahead and start just filming and seeing kind of how things go. My thought is we don't necessarily have to produce it if it doesn't come out the way that we had hoped it to. But we have a list of ideas on how we're going to structure this podcast. We brought on someone on the team. She just started a week ago, so we're going to give her a little bit of time to get her bearings before we start. Long form video is where everything is going and where it has been for quite some time. And it's not a part of social content that we have focused on either on my team. It's been largely reels, short form content that we do post on YouTube and other platforms, but Instagram has been our biggest, our most successful social media platform. And that has worked really well for us. So we're now adding another layer.
Let me ask you a question. And I know Sonny's in the back studio right now, but I want him to think about this too. When I go on social media, and I love Instagram too. That's like my platform as well.
Sure.
But it seems like all the agents are on Facebook. It seems like that's where all the activity is happening, at least amongst the agent population. And I don't know if that's true amongst your clients as well. But I see more agents engaging with Facebook, and even my competitors engaging in Facebook more than Instagram. Instagram is prettier in my mindset. I like the platform way better. I like everything about it better. But I see, for me at least, it seems like there's way more activity on Facebook. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I think it depends on like sometimes age demographic and also the type of conversation. I find that like I use Facebook to read like in like a group, like reading the Facebook groups where you can read a bunch of different comments. I feel like there's more interaction in comments on Facebook, and so versus Instagram where there still are some, but it's more visual than content or written content.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think they're both great. I though we are able to capture live audience through Instagram. We find that when people are moving from other parts of the country, that they've been able to find us through Instagram, pretty
That's good.
successfully.
All right, great. I'm glad to hear
Yeah.
that. So on the other
Yeah.
side of long form videos, what do you think about the little, like not even minutes, shorter than a minute, like 10-second, 15-second little fun
Yeah.
soundbite type videos? They're kind of catchy. They just keep repeating the same thing over. You might have like some music or sound with it. What do you think of that form of video? And are you using that?
We've done a few of those. What's great is we've done a few of those. They're great because they tend to get a lot of engagement quickly because people will watch them 2 or 3 times in a row because they are so quick. And so that's always kind of a fun way. And I think sometimes we'll do like not a still frame video, and then we'll have text over that. So it's there's motion in the video, but you're reading the text behind
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those have been super fun. We're always playing around with we're always playing around with new different ideas. We've got some fun videos coming up. We like to, not with every property, but as often as we can, we like to have fun with our real estate videos. We have a new listing coming up that we're in the process of coming up with some really fun, maybe it might have synchronized swimmers in the video, we'll see. But we like to create these fun elements to our listing videos. They tend to go.
So how do people find you on social media, Wade? Because you're really good at it. I mean, you are really good at social media. So where can people come see what you're doing and look at your listings and everything that you're up to?
Yeah, absolutely. Our Instagram handle is Wade, WADEATX. That's my personal one. And then Giles Group Austin is for the team. So both of those are great to follow, and we have different content for both.
Okay, excellent. All
and
right.
then Giles Group Austin is our website.
Excellent. Okay, there it is, everybody. So, check them out. You're going to see some really cool stuff there. All right. You look so, refreshed and relaxed and life's going good, but it's really been a hard year last year. I know it has. We've talked about it. You might even describe it as being a little bit of mayhem, with team members coming and going, listings coming and going, the market changing, disruption, all of this stuff going on. How are you keeping it all? How do you keep it all in perspective? I can't even say the word. How do you keep it all in perspective in the midst of mayhem?
Yeah. Well, and let me add 2 more things that are, I think, also equally important. Outside of work, I'm in the middle of a move, which is why I'm sitting in an empty room right now. And I have our first baby is coming in 5 weeks or less. So,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Moving, about to have a baby. Like we've got
that's good news. That's actually great
we're
news.
super excited.
Yeah.
There's a woman, and I go to this early morning workout class almost every day. And there's a woman in our class, and every time the coach gives us like a really tough, like new block or circuit that we have to do. Uh, Everyone tends to groan, except for this one woman who goes, "Woo!" and she like screams with enthusiasm. And then as the workout continues, then there's another thing that's really hard. And then she'll give her woo, and then like a couple of other people. And by the end of the class, everyone is wooing together in unison over these challenges. Just trying to kind of take that into uh, how we approach the challenges that we see every single day in real estate, because there's always something that comes up. There's always some fire drill. There's always something, and then there are headwinds like the lawsuit, the NAR lawsuit, and interest rates, and all these other factors that we can control. Anything that we can control are our actions and our attitudes, and trying to become look through the lens of we get to do this. This is an opportunity that we get to do to sell real estate and to serve our communities. It's pretty cool.
You said something that was interesting. It was like, first of all, we sort of get to do this. We don't have to do this, is one thing you said. And the other thing is you said was like, switch it to a Wahoo. And then the third thing, even within that, and implied that was that you're at a workout class first thing in the morning. So you're also doing some personal care and taking care of yourself too. So I don't know if people were paying attention, but within those comments it goes a little deeper in terms of how to keep perspective in this midst of mayhem, which is always real estate. I had a friend that described it as, how do you say it? He said he called it a rodeo at a circus in the middle of a tornado. And that's our business. And I thought that was a really good kind of, or a hurricane.
Yeah.
That's a really good description of what we do.
It sure is. It sure is.
Yeah.
You just never know what's going to pop up on your phone, what text message you're going to get, or phone call, or whatnot.
Yeah.
But that's why I love it. And I think also, again, back to my ADD, makes for a perfect career.
That's exactly right. It's 100% right. So you mentioned to me when we were preparing for this call, and maybe even Tom Ferry said this, and I know it's true. And they always say that agents that seem to do the best, the quickest, start during a bad market. So the reverse of that is, why does a good market make bad agents?
Good markets create bad agents.
Yeah.
And Tom did say that, and it totally makes sense, because when the market was booming and houses were selling as quickly as possible, and we were turning down business that we would have loved to have had today or whatnot, it brings in a lot of people, right? People go where the money is, and I think it created lazy agents. I think we as the agent community got a little bit lazy, and during that time, because lazy in our practice, not lazy. I mean, we were so busy, we're writing contracts that we weren't necessarily focusing on our business and our structures and our procedures. And in this market, we have to go back to actually marketing our properties and doing things correctly.
Right.
And you have to be. This is not the time for people who are not truly dialed into the real estate market and who are doing this full time. This is for professionals. It's not for people looking to make a quick dollar. And so I think we're going to see a lot of those agents filter out, which is good.
It's funny because I think it affects new agents, middle agents, top agents equally. I talked to a lot of top agents when we just came out of that COVID boom. Remember when that whole period where you just couldn't even keep up with what you were doing, and people are calling to list, people are calling to buy. It was just doing everything we could to stay out of the market. Well, one of the byproducts of that was that top agents stopped prospecting. And this is where we got the buy their own bathwater comment. And so they stopped prospecting because they were above it. They became above having to do that anymore. They didn't have to do open houses anymore. They didn't have to call into their sphere anymore. They didn't have to prospect, cold call, door knock, all those things that made them successful in the first place. I mean, that's something to think about, don't you think, Wade? Because if rates drop like we think they're going to drop this year, and the market takes off and goes nuts like we think it's going to happen, are we going to fall into that trap again and put aside all of our good habits and then
Well, look, I think that comes down to, again, separating the mental voice. I think you will see some agents do that. But like for me in my business, I have a scheduled standing meeting with my videographer every Wednesday afternoon. The Wednesday afternoons are blocked off to film content. And so on those Wednesday afternoons, my hope, and for the next several months, we'll be doing that so that I have more content batched up and say that's evergreen, the things that can be posted on those slow days or um, maybe a more seasonal, maybe it'll be more timely at a certain time of year or whatnot. But go ahead and have all that information. So that way, when things do get busy, I'm not falling off the wagon from a social media perspective. I'm still staying present in front of others while I might be busy in the background. And then also having a great team that have roles. Like we've got people on our team that are dedicated to working on our newsletter. We put out once a month. And we've got someone who owns that. And then it's proof. So we have deadlines and SOPs and KPIs with our business that everyone on the team has. Some are individual and some of them are shared collaboratively. But we run it like a business. It is a business. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily do. Systems, I'm not a systems guy. I am, again, all over the place. My Rolodex was in my brain up until about 3 years ago when I finally got a CRM, which is crazy to me. And looking back, I've learned how incredibly important and valuable systems and process are in order to run a truly successful business that is scaling. And so, yeah, it's been interesting because that's not my MO, that's not my information. It's something I've had to work toward and make sure that, and also making sure to hire people that is their inclination in certain roles, so that they're, I work like a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, like on the verticals, and all a little bit of everything at once, and it moves like a wave. And so some people on my team work similar to me, and then other people work in just one vertical and complete a project, they move on to the next. And so it's important to have people that excel and who work different ways to keep things moving.
How many people are on your team? I mean, do you have?
Yeah. So it's myself and an agent, one agent currently, and then everyone else is in support. So I have 6 people in support roles.
I think that's smart. I think it's really smart because if you want to be, in my opinion, if you want to maintain your business and keep growing your business and doing that, I think when you start managing a lot of agents, unfortunately, you're going to have to pull away from your business to help those people. Do you know what I mean? And those people aren't necessarily going to make you more money than you could. So when you have like 1 or 2 agents that you really that need your support, but they're not like you don't have to babysit them. That's one thing. And then you build the support team around you where you have marketing and an admin and maybe a business manager, and you're just really structured that way. And I know your husband's very involved in that kind of background. Then you can be the ADD performer, shooting the videos, doing the presentations, being there at the listing presentation, all that stuff that you do best. That's what you got to do, Wade, is free yourself to be Wade. And that's what it sounds like your team has been set up to do.
That's correct. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do. What I'm trying to do at the end of the day is the things that I enjoy and that I'm good at in this business. The last thing you want is for me to be writing. Now, I can do it, but I'm probably going to have to read over 4 times to make sure I didn't miss anything because, details are important. And I see details in other ways, but writing a contract is probably not the highest and best use of my time and not my best skill set. So I want to focus on bringing in the business, filming the content, talking about the market, making those relationships, those connections, and being, in selling the real estate and doing the negotiations and so on and so forth. I wanted to manage that part of the business, but working on editing a brochure, writing a property description is probably not me. I will get guidance and influence on all of that. We have team meetings on how we want to represent the property, but then I let my team go and do what they do best and work in their various verticals.
So to finish our conversation, I want to talk a little bit about something you're really, really good at, and that is you're good at saying no to opportunities that aren't going to be good for your business. And you and I discovered this quote that I think is really great, which is billionaires are able to say no better and more often than typical people. And that's interesting to me because you would think the opposite is true. You would think they say yes more. You would think that they dive into opportunities more often than not. But it's not the way at all. They're very, very discerning on where they're going to put their time and what opportunities they're going to work on, and do those opportunities make sense to them and to their business model. Talk
That's
about that a
correct.
little
Yeah.
bit with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just yesterday I turned down a listing. The property was going to be way overpriced for what it was, and the last thing I need is another seller calling me, asking me why they're not getting showings and why we're not marketing the property, because the property was going to be overvalued to such an extent. And at the end of the day, I'm about to have a baby and I'm moving, and the last thing I need right now for me right now is to take on another headache. And so and
Mission impossible.
and it wasn't, and the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. It wasn't at a price point that is
Yeah.
going to move the needle. And again, I'm not trying to be like, oh, like I love working deals, but there has to be a deal there. And at this point, where the seller was, where what the lens that I'm looking through, there's no deal to be had anytime soon with that. So really judging and learning how to say no. I've told people in the past, like, listen, I will talk you out of buying a house before I will have you talk you into it, because if I think that, it's my responsibility to point out the challenges and the pitfalls of a home. Sometimes when buyers are in that honeymoon phase, everything's perfect, and they're not taking into account that it's backing up to, penitentiary or whatever. I mean, whatever it is, like they're losing sight of the things that may matter. They may consider once they've closed. So, making sure that people are looking at properties from a well-rounded approach and truly keeping their best interest in mind has been just the core of what I have in my business. But I'll tell you, my very second listing ever was a $5 million property. It was 8,000 square feet with views of downtown. The house today is probably worth 15 to 18 million. And it was my second listing ever. And the seller was an absolute nightmare, and would call me in the middle of the night yelling and screaming. There was a typo on a website, and I got a phone call at like 30, just being berated. And I when that deal was done, I kind of made a promise to myself. I was like, if this is what this is going to be like, I don't want to part. I don't want to work with people like this. I will be like my mental health and energy and like my esteem is more important than closing a big deal. And so I kind of created a no asshole policy. People are allowed to have stressful moments and are allowed to have moments where it's a very emotional and stressful period of time transacting on the house. But if you're not a kind person, you'll probably.
That's so funny. I had a mentor that told me early in my management career that she said this. I love this comment. She said, "If they're beating you going in, they're going to be beating you going out."
Mhm.
So
That's
at the
correct.
start of the deal, they're beating you. I promise you, at the end of the deal, they'll be beating you.
Yeah.
And I really think agents have to be willing to walk away from toxic clients. I mean,
Yeah.
people that are
Absolutely.
just going to abuse you. It's like an abusive relationship. It's not necessary.
Now, the other thing I will say, after now 10 years of
We're
being
not
in the
talking about
business,
tough people either. It's not if they're tough. It's not that. People can be difficult and tough, and that's fine. We're
that's right.
talking toxic and abusive.
Exactly. Exactly. And there is a huge difference because I deal with difficult all day long.
Yeah.
Luxury real estate, you're going to deal with some different, unique personalities and some highly talented individuals and so on and so forth. And that's fine. But you can be kind about it. And so and that's been a great approach. And my team is grateful for it too, because we get to surround ourselves with other people that are similar mindset. And so we're really fortunate that we have fantastic clients in general.
Well, that's great. Well, you're a breath of fresh air, Wade, and somebody that we can all look to and learn from and emulate. And I really appreciate you for taking the time this morning or afternoon, for wherever you are in the world, uh, to be on this podcast with me and to share your wisdom and knowledge with us. So grateful that you did that. This is another Core Truth. This is Peter Hernandez, your host, and we'll be back next week with another great interviewee.